The power of ownership. Marcus Davis had always been a man of quiet confidence. He wasn't loud, but when he spoke, people listened. In his late 30s, he had climbed through the ranks of the corporate world, an industry that was often dismissive of his presence. Despite the subtle racial biases he faced at every turn, he had always maintained his composure. His rise had been slower than most, but Marcus was no stranger to the idea that excellence had to be earned. Piece by piece, he had come a long way from his humble beginnings in Chicago. Raised by his mother, a woman who worked multiple jobs to keep food on the table, Marcus was taught the importance of education, perseverance, and maintaining his integrity, especially when the world would challenge him on all three fronts. Years of hard work, sacrifice, and seizing opportunities had finally paid off. By the time Marcus was 35, he was the CEO of a company that specialized in high-end architectural design. It was a profitable business, one that he had grown from the ground up. It was also a company that, on the surface, seemed very much white-dominated, with few people of color in its ranks. The upper echelons of corporate power had always seemed a little too homogeneous for his taste. But that didn't stop Marcus from building something extraordinary on a particular day in the fall. Marcus decided to take a visit to one of the company's offices in a small city in the Midwest. The office, located in a sleek, modern building with large glass windows, was nestled in a neighborhood of predominantly white professionals. The workers were efficient, the building well-maintained, and the atmosphere was, for the most part, quiet and orderly as Marcus stepped into the office. The usual clatter of keyboards, phone calls, and low murmur of discussion seemed to stop abruptly. The receptionist, a young white woman in her early 20s, froze when she saw him walk in. Her smile faltered for just a moment, but it quickly reappeared, though there was a faint nervousness behind her eyes. "Hi, can I help you?" she asked, trying to sound casual. Marcus, his eyes scanning the room, noticed the sudden tension. He could feel it in the air, a shift. The workers at their desks, who had been so absorbed in their tasks just moments before, now seemed to be watching him, their eyes flicking back and forth in surprise and confusion. He was used to being the only black man in many spaces, but there was something particularly strange about the way the office had gone silent. "I'm here to see the office manager," Marcus replied, his voice calm but firm. The receptionist hesitated, looking around as if she wasn't sure what to do. She spoke into her phone briefly, then told Marcus to have a seat. As he waited, he couldn't help but notice the way the employees whispered to each other. It was like an invisible barrier had been drawn, one that divided him from the people who worked there. Even though he was, quite literally, their boss a few minutes later, the office manager, a man named Greg, came down to meet him. Greg was in his mid-40s, well-dressed, with an air of self-assurance that suggested he was used to running the show. He extended his hand to Marcus, but the moment their hands clasped, Marcus felt a slight tremble. Greg's smile was wide but tight, and there was an uncomfortable edge to his voice when he spoke. "Mr. Davis, it's a pleasure to finally meet you. I hope everything is running smoothly." Marcus gave him a polite nod, keeping his expression neutral. "It's running fine. Just wanted to check in personally," he said. Greg seemed to relax a little, but the unease still lingered in the air. As Marcus walked through the office with Greg, he noticed the subtle tension in the employees' posture. They were avoiding eye contact, busying themselves with tasks they didn't need to be doing. It wasn't hostile. It wasn't overt. But it was palpable then. Something unexpected happened. One of the workers, a man in his 30s named Tom, who had been sitting at his desk, suddenly stood up and walked over to them. He had a nervous energy about him, and Marcus immediately recognized the type someone trying to cover up discomfort with. Forced politeness. "Hey, Greg," Tom said, his voice a little too loud. "Did you hear about that new design contract we got? We're gonna need some extra hands." Could you maybe assign a few people? Greg glanced at him and nodded. But there was something about the way he said, "Yeah, I'll handle it," that didn't quite sound natural. It wasn't long before Marcus realized what was happening. The office was, to put it bluntly, not used to having a black man as its owner, especially one who wasn't just some figurehead, but a hands-on CEO. They didn't know how to react to him. And though they tried to mask their discomfort, it was clear that their assumptions about who ran the company didn't align with reality. They were uncomfortable because, in their minds, black men didn't own things like this. They didn't sit at the top of companies that provided wealth, opportunity, and influence. They worked in the service industry. They were athletes or entertainers, or they were just there to make up numbers. The concept of a black man being at the helm of a successful, high-end corporation challenged everything they had been taught or believed to be true about power and success. But Marcus wasn't there to make them feel comfortable. He wasn't there to conform to their expectations. No, he was there to show them what true ownership looked like. After a brief tour of the office, he called everyone into the conference room. The employees filed in, awkwardly taking their seats in tense silence. Marcus stood at the front, his tall, broad frame taking command of the room without even needing to raise his voice. "No, there's been some confusion around here today." He started, his tone even but authoritative. "So I'll make it clear, I own this company, I own this office. I've worked for it. I've built it, and I'm not going anywhere." The room was dead silent. "Some of you," he continued, "might be a little uncomfortable with that. I understand. I know it's not every day you see a black man walk into a room and claim ownership of something like this. But you don't have to like it, you just have to respect it." A few people shifted in their seats. Some exchanged glances. Greg, the office manager, cleared his throat nervously. "Mr. Davis, we respect you. We just didn't know." "Didn't know what?" Marcus interrupted, his gaze sharp. "That a black man could run a successful business. That's not my problem, that's yours. But I'm here now, and I'm here to make sure this company runs smoothly, so either you work with me, or you'll be working somewhere else." He let the words hang in the air, then took a step back, his expression softening. "Just a touch. I don't care where you are from, what you've been taught, or how long you've been here. I care about results, I care about loyalty, I care about work ethic. You show me that, and you'll have nothing to worry about." The silence in the room felt heavier now. But there was a shift and understanding. It wasn't the uncomfortable, whispered tension anymore. It was something else, acceptance, or at least the beginning of it. Marcus knew that change would take time. He knew that there would be resistance, questions, and even backlash. But in that moment, he had done what no one had expected. He had turned the tables, and he knew that slowly people would come to understand that ownership wasn't about race, wasn't about fitting into a mold. It was about vision, about hard work, and about staying true to oneself no matter the obstacles. As the meeting broke up, the employees filed out of the room. But this time, there was a new energy among them. A respect that hadn't been there before. Marcus Davis wasn't just the CEO of a company he was at. Reminder that the world was full of possibilities no matter who you were or where you came from. And sometimes the most radical act of resistance was simply showing up, taking what was yours, and owning it.